A very good evening and welcome to the Flipside webinar series, uh, which is basically a panel discussion on sharing lessons from the important books we have read. So my name is Fulel Taha and I'll be the moderator for this evening. Now, we have two very exciting panelists for today, but before that, I would like to tell you a little bit about Pick a Book and the story of Pick a Book basically. So, like the book that's being discussed today, Shoe Dog, which basically talks about Nike, we even Pick a Book had humble beginnings, right? So now, if I were to tell about the process of Pick a Book, now they say the best way to teach the best way to learn is to teach somebody, right? Now we encourage the habit of reading by getting all participants to read a book, research on it thoroughly, and present a summary. Now, not only does this help to hone your public speaking, communication, and presentation skills, but also helps to impart a wealth of knowledge, right? Now, Pick a Book actually started off as an office activity. Now, this garnered much interest among those who like to read but never had the time to. So, Pick a Book was born with public reading sessions and a much loved platform for readers of all ages, right? So, what started off as a fun initiative, right, quickly picked up interest among the connections of the staff, right? So, with massive public encouragement, Pick a Book gradually widened its roots and expanded to include public reading sessions. Now we went from being public reading sessions to going global in a matter of just 1 year, right? So we are Sri Lanka, India, Singapore, UK, and we'll be in 25 countries within the end of 2023, right? So that is a little brief about Pick a Book and how we started. So I am super excited for today's session, especially because we have amazing panelists and amazing influential books that are being discussed, right? Uh, so on today's session, we have Hetal Sampath, who will be discussing the book Shoe Dog, which is basically written by, which talks about Nike, and Marushia, who will talk about 4-Hour Work Week by Tim Ferriss, right? So before we get into this, I would like to welcome our panelists for today, Hetal and Marushia. Hetal, could you introduce yourself to the audience?
Hello, good evening, everyone. Am I audible?
Yes, you are, loud and clear.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Fulel. So I'm Hetal Sampath. I'm a chartered accountant by profession practicing in Nagpur. And I'm a very, very avid reader. In addition to reading, I'm very fond of cooking, gardening, cycling, and traveling. So that's a short introduction from me.
All right, great. Even I have taken up gardening as a hobby. It's very relaxing, just like reading. So thank you, Hetal, for being here. So next we have Marushia talking about 4-Hour Work Week. So before we get into that, Marushia, could you introduce yourself to the audience?
Sure, thank you, Fulel, and hi everyone. This is Marusha Pakirathan. I am a HR professional and I'm in the field of 6+ years. And my other interests are like reading books, traveling, photography, dancing, music. That's all about me, a short introduction. Thank you, Fulel.
Awesome. So let's dive right in because I'm super excited about discussing these very influential books, right? So let's talk about Shoe Dog. Now, Hetal, the first question is to you. Now, Nike, it's such an interesting name, right? Some say it's named after the god. Now, how did this shoe brand name itself?
So basically, what happened is after his education, Phil Knight went on a world tour. And on his way back from his world tour, he visited a lot of countries like Vietnam, India, Japan. At Japan, he spoke to a lot of shoe manufacturers to, import shoes. And on his way back, he stopped at Greece. And Greece, it's beautiful with a lot of ruins and a lot of temples. And there he stopped at the temple of goddess Athena Nike. And if you see the picture of that goddess, she's leaning forward to tie the strap of her shoe, and that's stuck in his head. So when they were brainstorming for the name of a company and someone suggested Nike, he jumped at it. He said, "Yes, this is what I want. This is what I want my brand to look like."
Yeah, that is such an interesting story. I mean, like I guessed, it was from the gods of Greece, I guess. So thank you, Hetal, for that amazing answer. Now let's talk about 4-hour work week. Now, Marushia, what exactly is this book trying to tell us? I mean, I feel like it's a bit controversial to talk about the 4-hour work week, but what exactly is this book trying to tell us? Is this any different from other self-help books?
Yeah, thank you for the question, Fulil. If you ask me whether it's different from other self-help books, I would say yes, definitely yes. And I think like most of the people misinterpret the title where it says 4-hour work week, and everyone like get excited looking at the title. But actually, what this book talks about and trying to say is how you can use your time, which is the scarcest resource and the non-renewable resource actually. So how you can use your time effectively so that you can focus living your dream or living your passion. Because in like we people like we are like tend to reward personal sacrifice instead of personal productivity, because like we like rather than being focusing on productivity, we focus on being busy, and like everyone what we are doing, whatever we are doing is whether like is it our passion or dream. Like if we ask people, like they will think for a moment, right? So that is what this book trying to tell us, how you can like increase your output per hour output as much as possible. It's not only in your professional life but also in your personal life, where you can make some time or allocate some time to focus on your dream. Thank you, Fully.
All right, excellent answer, Marushia. I mean, we live in a world where hustle culture is like glorified, right? And like you said, seeming busy versus being productive are two different things. And I'm really excited to talk about this book, Marushia. So let's also talk about Shoe Dog, right? So I guess this business, Nike, has humble beginnings, right? So Hetal, if I could ask, how did Phil Knight start his business?
So basically, Phil Knight had done an MBA from Stanford, and one of his projects was to write about entrepreneurship. And there he came up with this crazy idea about importing and selling shoes. So he wrote a paper on that, and that stayed with him. He said, "This is what I want to do." He was basically an athlete, he was a runner, and he knew the importance of shoes. He knew the importance the footwear made in the running. And that is what gave him the idea to start this business. And Japanese shoes were at that time of very good quality, and the price wasn't so high. So he felt he could import shoes from Japan. And so, as I said, after he finished his college, he went on a world tour and he made a stop in Japan. And he spoke to a few manufacturers and he zeroed it on a company called Onitsuka, which was based in Kobe. And he convinced them to sell shoes to him. And the rest, they say, is history.
I mean, when you talk shoes, my mind automatically goes to Nike, right? It's a billion-dollar industry, right? Billion-dollar company right now, and it's nice to see that they had very humble beginning. And I didn't know that Phil Knight was actually an athlete, so that would make the quality of shoes even higher, right? He knew what the athletes were going through. So thank you so much, Hetal, for that answer. Now, moving on to Marushia. So your previous answer, you mentioned about passion, right? Living your discussion. Now, does this book give any tips, or does it talk about overcoming fear in any way, Marushia?
Yes, definitely, Fulil. Actually, this whole book is summarized into an acronym called DEAL, DEAL. So D stands for definition, E stands for elimination, where you can like think of eliminating unproductive task in your list, and A stands for automation, how you can like automate your process so that you can save time. And the last one, L, stands for liberation, where he talks about actually taking many retirements in your life before your retirement age. So one of these under the under the letter D definition, he talks about the factor called fear. What he says is like to do or not to do. Most people like prefer unhappiness than uncertainty, isn't it? So including us, we all have that fear what would happen, what it might go wrong. So like we have a lot of questions in our mind, like our passion could be like starting a business or being self-employed or doing something additional in our life, but there's this fear within everyone that whether this will work out. So he suggests a few techniques. One is like he has like personally gone through this as well. Like in one point in time, his business was not doing well, and he was sitting and thinking how he can overcome this. And you won't believe he just planned a Europe tour just to overcome that. And by that time, he had so many questions whether this will work out, because if he's away from the business, people might even sue him, and there could be like legal issues, lot of questions. But what he did was he sat and actually scored everything, in the sense like from on the scale of like 1 to 10, his fear, he just scored whether it could be like 10 being the highest, whether it could be fatal. So he just did that, and he realized one time that nothing won't be fatal, and then the least risk was at the score of like 3 or 4. So for that, what he did was he found some like alternatives how he can overcome that. So what he suggested, you also can do that. And like for example, if you want to be an entrepreneur, just think, if you quit your job, what will happen? You will lose your few bucks of like income, but how will you manage during that time? Likewise, to come up with some remedies and plans. And also what he suggests is like ask for forgiveness and not permission, because we always think, and like if we want to plan something or if we want to like do something, we always ask everyone's opinion. And he tells you not to do that, not to ask permission, but to ask forgiveness, because that is how it's like because don't you shouldn't give a people to you shouldn't give a chance for a people to say no, because most of the people will stop you even before you get started actually. So he suggests not to do that. And there are other few techniques as well. If you read the book, you will get to know. Thank you.
All right. Sounds very interesting, Marushia. The acronym DEAL. So I will look into it. It sounds very interesting. So let's also jump into the next question, which is to Hetal, right? So we are talking about now sales is a major aspect of any industry, right? Uh, can we talk about how exactly did Phil Knight grow his team? Who are the main sales people involved here?
So basically, Phil Knight's partner in the business was his track and field coach. As I said, he was an athlete. So his track and field coach was Bill Bowerman, who was the Oregon State track and field coach. And his partner in the business was Bill Bowerman. So through him, he came to know of a lot of athletes and a lot of runners. So he first poached some retired runners to be salesmen for his shoes, retired hurt runners. So these people were so passionate about running, and they were such passionate athletes that they found it easier to sell the shoes. And by he grew his team to a huge number of people. who were mostly ex-runners or basically into track and field events. And that's how they set up shop in track and field events all over the country. The trial for the Olympics, they used to set up a stall. They used to try to market their shoes. They used to try to get the number one athletes of the US. So this was before the time where endorsements were legal. You know, this was in the early 70s or the mid 70s, and this was before the time that endorsements were legal. But they tried to get the athletes to wear their shoes, and that is how he tried to grow his business. And starting from there, really gave it a big fillip. His entire business got a big fillip.
All right. So he I didn't know that he hired track and field coaches. That is a very beautiful approach, because they're the ones who know best about shoes. And I'm actually surprised that he didn't hire sales professionals. He just hired people who are actually passionate about this. And as you said, it would have made it easier for them to sell the product. So thank you, Hetal, for that amazing answer. Now, moving on to the 4-hour work week. This book is centered around effectiveness, right? It talks a lot about effective and how we can be more effective. So it also talks about productivity, right? So, can you tell us a little bit about that, Manusha?
Yeah, sure. Actually, like we have heard these words actually a lot, like efficiency and effectiveness. So what Tim says is like effectiveness is doing something that get you closer to your goals, and like efficiency is something like performing a task in an economical manner. And we all need to remember that what we do is more important than like how you do it. So like it's more than you figure out how you do it. It's important for us to know or figure out what we are going to do it. And also what he says is like for you to like identify that what you're supposed to do, you have to figure out or define doing something unimportant well does not make it important. And like if a task is requiring a lot of time, it doesn't make it important. So I hope you understand, like got that difference. And also he also talks about other principles that we heard, like 80-20 rule. He like where like 80% of your it's about like figuring out how like 80% of your profits come from 20% of your products or services that you offer, or the problems 80% of your business problems that comes from 20% of the effort that you are doing. It could be applied in your personal life as well. Like you can think of what is that 20% of your life or people makes you happy, like brings that 80% of your happiness or something like that. So which can be applied in your personal life as well. And in this chapter, actually, what was new to me was he talks about this Parkinson's law, 95 illusion. What he says is under this, if a task is given to a person, for example, if he is given with 9 to 5 to do it, he will still do it. And even if you still ask him to do like 9 to like 10 p.m. Till like if you give time till like 10 p.m. in the night, he will still do it. That is because no one was like given incentives or like rewarded for doing the task in less hours. So they are just trying to fill time. So it's just time is get wasted just because there's a lot of time left. So that is what this Parkinson's law talks about, and I found it like really interesting. While reading, I actually had a like doubt what is the difference between this 80-20 rule and the Parkinson's laws. And the author gives two simple answers for that. Like it's like one line which defines these two theories. Limit tasks to the important to shorten the work time, which is 80-20 rule, and shorten work time to limit tasks to the important, which is the Parkinson's law. So likewise, he gives actually a lot of techniques in this book for you to like focus on a productive task or list that is in your to-do list, so that you can eliminate all the unimportant and unnecessary tasks. Thank you.
All right. Thank you, Marussia. So prioritizing your tasks goes a long way. Thank you so much. I learned a lot of lessons from this book, Marussia. So let's dive into Two Dog now. Now, Hetal, now we live in a time where we have plenty of, venture capitalists and angel investors and all that, right? But then when Phil Knight started this, it was a long time back where business idea funding was unheard of, right? So how exactly did he manage without these venture capitalists?
So this business was started in the early 70s or mid 70s. And at that time, there were no venture capitalists, there were no private equity. And nowadays, you get finance just by discussing the idea and the projections with the possible investors. But this concept did not exist at that time. It was the same old system where you go to the bank, you ask for a letter of credit for the shipment that is due to arrive, and you get money, to clear that shipment, but you have to show high cash reserve. Now, at the beginning of the business, Phil Knight did not have those kind of cash reserves. And the bank, the First National Bank, gave him a lot of headache for that because he was so cash strapped. He ended up borrowing money from not so well to do employees of his also. So it was a very, very difficult time for him till he found a Japanese commodities trading company called Niso Iwai. Those people so much believed in Phil Knight. They were so enamored by his dream for the shoe company that they extended a huge line of credit for him, and they bended their back to accommodate him, and they also twisted the arm of bankers to give them loans till till Nike went public. All these issues were till Nike went public, and once Nike went public, people who had loaned him $5,000, $7,000 just to be afloat, those people became rich overnight. Not to say about Phil Knight. Phil Knight also became a huge millionaire once it went public. So these are the problems he faced, and because of Niso Iwai, he could, be afloat till he went public.
So it also talks about his passion and perseverance throughout this business process, right? Like at the beginning stages of the business, we are tested a lot, right? When it comes to the funding and all these problems suddenly come. It's a really beautiful story, Hetal. Thank you so much for sharing that with us. So let's move on to the 4-hour work week now. There's a lot of talk about retirement age, right, Marussia? We talk a lot about how we should retire young, and there's a lot of topic. Even Ikigai talks about never retiring. Now, my question to you is like most of the people don't want to wait till their retirement age, right? And this book is called Mini Retirement. Can I know what is that exactly?
Yeah, absolutely. Like you correctly mentioned that no one wants to wait till their retirement age to spend their life leisurely. What he suggests is that you can take mini breaks, mini retirement, like while you are young, while you are in your 20s, 30s, or 40s. And there's this nice story in this book that he says. Don't know like whether you all have heard about this story. It's about like Mexican fisherman and the American banker. So this American banker, what he has done is he was on a long vacation, and seems like Hetal have heard this story before.
Yeah, nodding ahead.
Okay.
It's a
Okay.
beautiful story. Yeah.
Yeah, it's a beautiful story. So this American banker, he was on a vacation, and he went to a small village in the Mexican, and he met a fisherman who was, and then he had like really quality fishes, and he was just commenting about like that was really good. You have like quality fishes, and he suggested that why don't you spend he has asked like how long it took you to catch these fishes. Then he said, the fisherman said that not long. Then the banker asked, why don't you spend some more time and like get some more fish? Then he was like, this is enough to feed my family and to fulfill all my needs. Then the banker asked, what will you do then? Then the fisherman said that I'll just sleep little more, spend some time with my children, with my wife, and the evening he just go to the town and he will spend some time with his friends, drinking wine and playing guitar, like that. He was telling his lifestyle. And the bank asked, the American banker said that he's MBA graduate from Harvard University, and that he could help him like earn some more extra money. And he suggested that you can buy a board if you fish little more time, that you will get some extra money, so that like you can buy a boat. And then the fisherman asked, okay, what's next? Then the American banker said, with that money, you can even like open up a factory, and then you can, when the time goes well, and you can even like introduce your company in the stock market and all. Then he asked, what's next? Then he said, like when you earn millions, and the fisherman was like, millions, and the banker said, yeah. And he asked, what's next? Then he was like, you can like sleep late, spend your time with your children, you can go in the evening and spend some time with your friends and like friends and like, yeah, like you were saying, something like that. So it's just like he was telling that after earning everything, you can live that life where he was happy with what he was getting, and he was still living that life now. So sometimes it's like less is more. So it's that you have to like define what is important to you, what is your passion, what is your dream. And it's just we always like in this rat race, and like we just forget sometimes what we are doing. And like we normally take, and we hardly spend time for us, for our family. So this story it was really beautiful how they have explained the reality. So that is, I think through this story itself, he says that you can take some breaks, and there are a lot of actually tips in this book. He also suggests how you can like get a cheaper flights, something like that. So he suggests even some websites and all. It was like this is like totally action oriented book, that I would say.
All
Yeah.
right. Thank you so much, Marusha, for that beautiful story. I mean, at the end of the day, it's about being content with what you have. That's how you get happiness, because the more you're grateful, the more you get, right? So thank you so much, Marusha. I'm really moved by that story, especially when you said mini retirement. I mean, some of us can't even fathom the idea of retiring, even for a little bit, you know. So thank you so much, Marusha. So let's talk about Two Dogs. Hetal, you mentioned about this Onitsuka place, right? So what actually happened after Onitsuka ditched Blue Ribbon?
Yes. So let me just tell you a brief story. When Phil Knight went to meet Onitsuka for the first time when he traveled to Japan, Onitsuka people asked him, uh, you know, which company are you representing? And at that time, Phil Knight hadn't really thought of any name, but he had won a lot of blue ribbons in his track and field events. So he just blurted out, the name of my company is Blue Ribbon. So that's the basic background of Blue Ribbon. And so for a few years, he just imported shoes from Japan and sold them. And uh, so from Onitsuka, Onitsuka was his only supplier. And his partner, who was his track and field coach, Bill Bowerman, he used to suggest design changes to Onitsuka. And Onitsuka used to, carry out those changes because they were really impressed with by Bowerman. And those shoes really sold very well. But one fine day, Phil Knight realized that Onitsuka is looking for more distributors all over the US, in spite of the fact that they had been given the sole distributorship. And one thing led to another, and Phil Knight decided that he has got to, increase his lines of supply. And that's when he remembered that I don't know if I'm pronouncing this right, Guadalajara. It's a place in Mexico. There was a factory in Guadalajara which produced excellent shoes. And Phil Knight said, I'm going to ask that factory to make shoes for me and sell in the US. In the meantime, he also built his own factory in Exeter, US itself. And that's how. And then once Onitsuka came to know of this, because they were just shopping around for other distributors, they hadn't appointed anybody else. And once Onitsuka came to know of them, they sued them. But Phil Knight and his legal team was ready to fight it out in court. And they said, now nothing doing. We do not want to have anything to do with Onitsuka. They are not true to their word. And by, they went on to establish factories in Taiwan, in Korea, and finally now they have a factory in China, and 40% of the shoes are manufactured there. And after US, China is the second biggest market for their shoes in the entire world. So this is how they managed after they broke ties with Onitsuka, and that is how they grew in leaps and bounds, and that is how they went public, and the rest is history.
The rest is history indeed. I mean, like I said, when you talk about shoes, you talk Nike, right? So thank you so much, Hetal, for that amazing answer. So we are coming to the end of this session. So this is the final question for Marussia. So I feel like the audience are going to read this book for sure, especially after that amazing story that you told us. So is there anything that you could tell these readers who are planning to read this book?
Okay, so actually there is a warning that do not read this book unless you want a new way of living. So this was not by me, it was by the author itself. Like you can find this warning in like red letter, like behind the cover of this book. So like we were discussing, so this talks about new way of living. And yes, like you said initially, like it will be like bit controversial, and it depends on the reader actually. And in the sense like the ideology and the passion that's in his mind, and sometimes especially being in the Asian, like one or two would not be applicable. So we have to like pick and choose what we are gonna take it away from this book. And I would definitely say this is not suitable for everyone and applicable to all professionals, but there is something for everyone to like take from this book. Like I said, like while I was when I was reading this book, I found it very motivating and enthusiastic. And I started, like, even though I had something in my mind to like do something on my own than my like 9 to 5 job, I was thinking what it could be. So that is what like it was running in my mind while I was reading this book. So definitely, like I was saying, there will be something for everyone to take away from this book, and I highly suggest and recommend this book for everyone.
All right. Thank you, Marussia. Not only am I going to read the 4-hour work week, Hetal, you have created enough curiosity for me to start reading this book. I mean, it has a lot of amazing stories, like you said. So thank you so much to our wonderful panel, Marussia, for sharing valuable insights on 2 very interesting and influential books. So I would also like to thank our audience for their support and feedback on today's session. And with that, we have come to the end of the session. If you would like to know more about Pick-a-Book, please visit our website, which is www.pickabook.club, or contact us on 077 55 48283. If you would like to know more about Pick-a-Book, you could visit www.pickabook.club or call us on 077 55 48283. with that, we have come that we would like to wrap up this session. Thank you so much again for our wonderful panelists, Hetal and Marushia. So I'm sure our audience learned a lot of lessons from today's session. So till we see you next time, thank you and good night.
Thank you
so much, Pulail.
Thank
Nice
you
to
so
meet you,
much.
Hetal.
Nice to meet you, both of you, Pulail and Marushia. Really nice.
It was
Take
my
care.
pleasure. Thank you so much.